So you have this pattern in modern times as well as in medieval times of orthodoxy and heresy, and the orthodoxy is backed up by a huge, you might call authoritarian structure behind it. How do you see that, Peter?
I think that there are lovely examples. We can go to consciousness. Let's take Dan Dennett in his book The Nature of Mind, and here he gives a wonderful description, Dennett's description of what mind is. And he argues that you have to know all about the neurons. And if you know all about the neurons, then you will understand mind and you'll understand consciousness. But most scientists are very badly educated. What they don't know is what Dan Dennett's assumptions are. His assumptions are that you can only see, you can only deal with those things that you can see and measure. That's what he says. He says the mind is a peep show. So there cannot be mind in his formulation. The result is he ends up with saying you have to know all about the actual details of the neurons, and then consciousness will arise. Now, if people were really told what Dan Dennett's assumptions were, they'd all say, well, come on, we actually now believe in downward causation. But that was a major change. Do you remember? It was all neurons going up, and then psychoneuroimmunology came along and said maybe mind can affect these things. And then there was the real difficulties. In fact, Sperry, who got his Nobel Prize for corpus callosum cuts in the early 90s, he made this daring assumption in his Nobel Prize speech that downward causation did occur in the nervous system. Mind could actually change things in the nervous system. It was a radical idea, and I think one hasn't to be too hard on science, because if you take it over a longish period of time, these ideas do come in. Everybody talks now about psychoneuroimmunology. It's quite common that the mind affects the brain, which affects the immune system, and the idea that you get cancers because you're sad is well within our scientific understanding. But try to extend mind outside the brain in the area that you've been doing, Rupert. And then you come up against this very, very strong degree.
Well, in each of these cases, you have the assumption underlying it that the mind actually produces the brain. Sorry, the brain produces consciousness. Right?
Yes.
And whether it's a mentalism or whether it's identity theory, there are various ways of putting it. It still amounts to a materialistic understanding of consciousness, and this is really the threshold that both of you have expanded beyond, but which is jealously guarded by the orthodox view.
Yes, I think it's a shame, really, because there's so many phenomena that are important to us where mind clearly acts beyond the brain. One of the ones which I'm studying at the moment are approaching death experiences, and this is what happens when you die. And there are a whole set of phenomena which occur during the dying process which suggests extended mind, and before you die there are questions again about extended mind. For example, you're taken through the dying process by a dead relative. We have lots of accounts of that. At the time of death, the dying person goes to meet somebody else, a telepathic-like experience. And then there are these wonderful things that occur as people die. It's the sort of shaking of the structure of the world. Bells ring, clocks stop, light is seen, things leave the body. It's the most amazing time of death. But from the point of view of our mechanical view, the clock stops and the brain dies, and that's it.
So the extinction of consciousness, but everything that you're finding around the near-death experience and nearing death experience suggests that consciousness is not extinguished. And this is very challenging for the orthodox materialist view.
It's impossible for the orthodox materialists. They don't like it at all. They immediately rationalise it and explain it away.
And how do you see that? Is it possible for a breakthrough to occur in that field, do you think?
I think that the way the breakthroughs will occur is because the scientific evidence gets to a point where people can't ignore it. When people start doing experiments like Rupert is doing, when people start looking at the dying process, then these things are all there, and providing that people are willing to recognise them, then I think science will move on.
Well, that's a key point, because they don't recognise it. They try and ignore it if possible, or explain it away.